Today, Val Holmes has signed a deal with the Dragons as of next year. Mick, you've got all the details on this. How did it unfold and how much is he on?
Yeah, it's obviously a big deal for the Dragons to get Valentine Holmes done for next year. Adds in with the signing of Damien Cook for next year. But it was last month where Valentine Holmes was given permission from the Cowboys to negotiate permission to leave the club. He's still got 12 months left on his contract, and that's where the Dragons pounced. Shane Flannagan identified Valentine Holmes as a potential replacement for Zach Lomax. They needed a guy that could play a couple of positions in the back line. They needed a goal kicker. They needed some experience. Guys like this aren't on the market. He hasn't been great so far this year, Valentine Holmes, but Shane Flannagan knew what he was getting. They won a premiership together at the Sharks. So what Shane Flannagan did, which is rare, he got on a plane last Thursday. I think the flight was 6 a.m, back the same day to fly to Townsville.
It's a fair trip.
It's a fair trip, and there's not a lot of direct flights, so he had to time it well to get there. But he got there, and, you know, it was a bit of clear the air meeting as well. Things didn't end the best, I guess, with Valentine Holmes at the Sharks. Obviously walked out on the club to join the NFL. So they let all that out, and it's culminated in a 3-year deal worth about $850 at the Dragons. Is, you know, that contract that he's on at the Cowboys is big money. We're talking $1.15 million next season, which makes him one of the highest paid players
That's a lot of money
in the competition, right? Don't forget, he signed that contract when he was coming back from the NFL on that 6-year deal to play fullback. And it's probably this year and you know, for next year, the Cowboys just thought it was a little bit too much money, but big signing for the Dragons.
I think it's a win-win for both clubs because from a North Queensland Cowboys point of view, they can upgrade and extend Reuben Cotter. They've got good young backs emerging in that roster. Kyle Labutt, Tom Chester, Viliami Vale, they're all good young players. And for the amount of money that Val Holmes was on, well, you can probably retain all three possibly of those.
Is this because Taumalolo won't move on? Is it that they've got pressure on the cap and they need
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, their cap was pressured, but now with Val moving on and freeing up $1.15 million, in all likelihood they can re-sign Reece Robson, extend out Reuben Cotter, who's one of the co-captains. It's a big win for the Cowboys, but for the Dragons as well. I like the way that Shane Flannagan goes about his recruitment. He doesn't just look at the marquee players and try and shoot for the stars with the Hail Mary plays. He's very systematic. He's ruthless with a dollar. Like, he won't pay a dollar more than he absolutely has to. But with Val Holmes, Damien Cook, I think they'll sign either Regan Campbell-Gillard or Daniel Safidi in the upcoming weeks. Not sure which one yet, maybe leaning slightly towards RCG. And then the big one is I think that the Dragons will make a play for Clint Gutherson, the Parramatta Eels captain. So he is off contract as of...
Flanagan's going to make a play at Gutherson, did you say? Or?
Yes. Yeah,
really?
I think that he will, yes. So
even with Val, where would they...
Gutho's off contract as of November 1. He's got next year at Parramatta. We've all seen the way...
But he'll want him next year?
Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, why would you go for him the year after?
Well, according to the rules at the moment, they can talk as of November.
I'm thinking out loud.
I'm looking at it and I'm thinking... Yes, in all likelihood. Well, it'll depend how the Eels want to react to this. If the Eels decide that...
they might think that it's a good move for the Eels. I don't...
It's a matter for Jason Riles.
Because he'd be on quite a bit of Parramatta at the moment.
I think he's on close to $1 million next season. So
Dragons again wouldn't pay that, would they?
I'm not sure. I don't think they'd be prepared to pay all of it. But that would then be a decision for Clint and Gutho about whether he wants to have one more year at Parramatta or whether he likes the opportunity of a fresh start at a different club.
For multiple years as well.
Do we think that Gutho would go?
Well, I think it's a chance. I mean, we've got to wait and see what happens when November rolls around. But certainly, well, Parramatta doesn't look like the playing rosters all enjoying themselves at the moment.
If you're Clint Gutherson and Parramatta don't want you and you're getting some love from the Dragons, you go. Like, you go where you wanted, you go where you feel valued, if that's the case. And from a Dragons point of view, similarly to the signing of Valentine Holmes, you'd be getting a player that one team is prepared to pay over $1 million for $8 or $850. So it makes financial sense to your salary cap. And when Shane Flanagan's putting these rosters and signatures together, he gets experienced players because they're not a drain on resources. So you can say to Val Holmes and you can say to Cookie, here's what I want you to do. And they can do it because they've been around the block. So he can focus his resources on the advancements of games of Sloan, of the young Feagai boys, the Couchman twins. That's where he can then spend his time. It's exactly the carbon copy of what he did at Cronulla. Now, success leaves clues. It doesn't always play out that way. There's no cookie-cutter approach. But he'd look back at that and go, it worked for me then. Why wouldn't it work for me again?
So Gutherson, if he did decide to leaves a big chunk for Parramatta. Does that bring Ryan Papenhuyzen back into the frame if that was to happen? Like Ryle's coaches in Melbourne would have a really good relationship, I would imagine, with Ryan. Paps can talk November 1.
Yep.
And they'd have a lot of money, probably a lot more than Melbourne at Parramatta to pay for him. And they need to be making moves, Parra. If they're going to be losing these players, they need to be making moves.
If they had any sort of idea, I'd be throwing the kitchen sink at Ryan Papenhuyzen. I think that in all likelihood they will certainly have a crack, right? But the stumbling block is going to be, it isn't a great sell at the moment. The optics of Parramatta right now, they're a shandy in front of the West Tigers. So from a player's point of view, I'm not sure it's the most appealing destination. I know how much, and I'm sure you're across this as well, Braith. Ryan Papenhuyzen loves Melbourne. He loves the Melbourne Storm. I think if he gets it his way, he'll try and stay there. But don't forget, look, he went to school out at Kellyville.
That's what I mean.
He's grown up in the area. Yeah. He would be the perfect face for a fresh generation, a new start at that club. The link with Jason Riles is significant. I know that they have a...
Well, it gives it a chance.
Well, it makes it sell easy.
If Riles wasn't there, he'd almost say no. But with Riles there, it's a chance.
Exactly.
If that relationship is built on trust, which I imagine it is, he was saying, look, trust me, Ryan. Also, Stuart Flannagan down at the Storm, he can't play Reggie's or play off the bench forever. So the Storm are going to be...
Will be one or the other.
It's one or the other. They made the decision with Hines and Papenhuyzen, and they're in the same predicament again. Yeah. You've got to make a call. You can't keep Flannagan playing off the bench because otherwise you will eventually lose him. So it's one or the other.
No, I think if they miss Papenhuyzen, if they do go for him, Parra, they go for Flannagan. Yeah. All right, interesting. That's a big call there from Gutho. Possibly
it is.
Going to the Dragons. Not going to the Dragons, but Flanagan showing interest there. What's the latest on the Latrell Mitchell situation? Is there any update here?
You got any update, Mick?
No movement at the station yet. There, Braith is still waiting. Obviously, the NRL have intimated that no, they're not going to comment publicly until a resolution happens, and I've got no clear indication of when or what they may not be.
I think the NRL Integrity Unit interviewed Latrell yesterday, and it'll now be a matter for Peter V'landys and Andrew Abdo to decide if any sanction, what punishment it is.
Do we know how long that? I mean, we've seen precedents in the past.
Yeah, I'd be looking at examples recently. Brandon Smith, Cameron Munster, those...
Val Holmes.
Yeah, Val Holmes, that's right, from the back end of last year. So 2 games and maybe a $100,000 fine with 50 suspended, something like that. That's purely just me having a stab at previous examples of similar situations.
Do we know when when this investigation will be over, or when it will have any comment from the NRL or anyone? No real idea.
I don't think Latrell hasn't wanted to go into any great detail with the Integrity Unit, I don't think.